Live? No. We're live. Hey guys, welcome to another Iron Disciples episode on fitness. This time we're going to be talking about weight loss. It is the hot subject and what most people want to do in this country if they want to lose
just take
some weight.
Ozempic and you win, right?
We're going to get into that later. I'm going to talk about Ozempic and fat burners. But for now, we're going to do an introduction. We're going to talk about our personal journey real quick. We're going to throw up some pictures so you know we're credible, that we have been fat and we have lost weight. Want to throw those up, Dave?
Yeah.
All right. So where are you at here, Mike?
Oh, yeah. So the left side of me there, that was probably 8 years ago now. Yes, 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, at my fattest was working at Microsoft with the best cafeteria the workplace could have. Fountain drinks everywhere, chocolate milk machine.
What?
And I ballooned up pretty quick. I think I hit like 225, and then I just it was like zero muscle, so 225 and fat.
Damn.
So yeah, and my journey, like the photo next to me, that's like current, but I cut from 225 to my lowest at 165, so I cut down 60 pounds. Yeah, so that was.
How long did it take?
I probably did the majority of it in over 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then that kind of last chunk. I was more maintaining and then sometimes slowly losing weight by messing around with my diet. But yeah, it was quite the journey. I did the keto diet actually probably for a good solid 5 years, and that helped me maintain and it helped me lose and maintain.
A quick note. So you said 60 pounds, 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no. It was probably 40 to 50 pounds in 2 years. That last 10 or so was like a slow cut, almost by accident.
Well, so do some quick math. So yeah, this is going to be something we're going to talk about because right there it's showing about 2.5 pounds per month to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important point that we're going to bring up later in the podcast when we talk about how much weight to lose optimally.
Mm-hmm.
And you were keeping it pretty conservative at 2.5, and I'm sure you lost more weight and then less weight as time went on.
Yeah,
but we're going to talk more about that so people can understand how to gauge your weight loss and how that scales into getting skinnier.
I had some unique ways to get through plateaus. We'll save.
Right. That's a great subject we're going to talk about. So, John and I, that's the Christmas of 2016.
Full screen that day.
We're in California at this point in time. And John and I had made ourselves fat. We were eating like 7 meals a day, around 5,000 calories. And we were trying to gain muscle mass. And we got fat because we were eating an insane amount of food. And
you were at least strong as an ox then.
So strong.
Yeah,
I was repping out 315. Like, just the body was so powerful. And then we got skinnier. This is my brother and I last year, and I think we're right around in this picture around 178 ish. And that took a while because we lost weight pretty slowly. But just to give you guys some credible, we have lost. So that was at 200 pounds. That was like 210 right there. So went down at my skinniest was like 168. So that's around 40 pounds, right around
35, 32.
You know, right?
Yeah. So cutting weight.
That's a thing, guys. So we're gonna kind of go into a broad overview of these notes that I've written down about losing weight. So we're gonna read here, guys. So put on your listening capabilities here. So what is the issue? Losing weight is something most people will have to do at some point in their lives. Fat loss is at the top of the list for diets and training plans in the West. Why? Because we are rich in the West. Easy lives, calorically dense, nutrient deficient, highly addictive, poisonous foods, accessible everywhere, oftentimes the only option, coupled with little need for physical activity of any kind, and a pulp culture that glamorizes unhealthy examples of beauty, equates to entrenched widespread health problems. These health issues are most often manifested in chronic illness and obesity. skyrocketing in the last 70 years. Chronic illness like obesity, ADD, autoimmune disease, diabetes, ADHD, autism, asthma, food allergies have increased 600-fold. We spend as a country 4.3 trillion on chronic illness while spending 1.3 trillion on the federal defense and security. We're fighting the wrong war. The war is right here in our homes and what we put in our bodies. Good news is this is something we have autonomy over, unlike the war in Ukraine and Gaza Strip. We're going to focus on weight loss today, but along with it, you will notice a few other birds of chronic illness hit with the proverbial stone. So the reason why I bring up all this other information is because I want people to understand this issue of obesity is extrapolated over chronic illness that it relates to a lot of other things.
Exactly.
So when we think about obesity, it's manifest in a physical form. You can actually point your finger and say that person's obese, right? But along with the beauty trends nowadays, when you have like Lululemon and oversize and supersize and this unhealthy representation of what beauty is and what health is, not to say that beauty is health, because those two are not the same thing. But weight loss is often, I think, people want to look better.
Mm-hmm.
They want a different aesthetic, right? A lot of times that's the motivator. A lot of people are happy and fat. You know,
Right.
Maybe they have trouble going upstairs. But I wanted to bring up the reality that a lot of this chronic illness is a result of being obese.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the for instance, like children being obese, and then you have, diabetes that was never happening, 50 years ago. We have this manifestation, this physical thing that's like, I want to look better, but being obese is not healthy.
I saw to just like so we understand the volume today. I saw Lane Norton had posted about the volume. I think 73% of U.S. adults are overweight, and 39% of those are obese. Obesity increases the risk of over 200 health conditions, including the top 2 causes of death: heart disease and cancer. Right. 73% of the public. Sometimes I think we forget that because our social circle is not in that category. And it's like when you go out to Walmart, you see the reality of American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different.
It is. It's very different. And it's not one of those things that is, I think, in pop culture getting better in a lot of areas because, the millennials and this whole inclusiveness and the way that we look at what beauty is, the standard of beauty. Once again, beauty and being healthy are two different things, right? But I have to repeat this because a lot of people do get or want to get skinny, not because they want to be healthy,
mm-hmm.
just because they want to look better,
mm-hmm.
right? So we spend a lot of money on people that are chronically ill
mm-hmm.
because of what they're eating. And what you eat and how you spend your time physically active or inactive is going to affect not only you, but everyone else in your country.
Yeah, our insurance rates are like, I think 20% of people are using 80% of the insurance costs. And so the average person that's healthy, or not, definitely not the average person, but the healthy people get kind of the shaft on a lot of these expenses because they got to pay the bill for the other people.
Yeah. And that's not great for a country. That's why I brought up the national defense, because we spend a lot of money on bombs and fighter jets and, technology. But are we really protecting the people of our country if we're not giving them the education that they need?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this paper is going to focus in on, is in education. And that's why I started off that way, guys. So you can kind of frame this issue out to see it not just from, man, I want to get into a smaller pair of jeans and get looking good for summertime, but see this as like a much broader issue, and one that is something you have to take responsibility over.
I'm sure you see it in your own family too. I imagine if you're following a podcast, you're probably not. It's very likely you're not in that obese category, but I'm sure you got people around you, and it is hard to like wake them up to that reality and the damage is going to cause them 10, 20 years later.
Right. It really is. It really is. So I want to continue reading here, guys. I want to go, Mike.
Sure. So people are often confused by the endless diets and training plans for losing weight. Let's bring some clarity to the subject with a metaphor. In Florida, people collect rain. They will put large drums under their gutters to collect rainwater for There are laws to cut costs on the water bill for irrigation and keeping their lawns green. Think of rain as food. The excess rain/food is collected as a fat for scarce times to keep you alive when no food is available. Open any history book and you'll notice starvation is a thing, and many people, whole civilizations, starved as a result of plague, drought, and siege warfare. Before civilization, it was probably the most common cause of death besides fatal trauma. Therefore, the body stores fat for surviving. It knows from thousands of years of generations that starving is a thing. We may not appreciate our body's response to starvation because we live in a rich country with churches and food banks and federal welfare programs. This is not so much in the third world countries where famine, starvation, and malnutrition are alive and well. Don't believe me? Google list of famines and prepare yourselves for a long one that the most recent, you have guessed it, is 2024. The year I write this, in my 35 years of life, there have been 18 documented famines. Well over 10 million have died. The body is highly efficient, or your body is a highly efficient badass machine made to survive in the most incredible conditions. This is why it stores fat, not because it hates you. And what one kind of anomaly I remember, I think it's like a Scottish guy. He went like a whole year not eating, big fat dude.
Yeah.
And it just showed, like, I think he literally just drank water, took, I think, some light supplements, and just ran off fat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your body's, it's storage, it's energy source.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, some people don't understand, like, just where we came from. This, and that's why I bring up famines, because we really are insulated from the reality of, like, having food so readily available all over the place. If you go over to, like, some of these third world countries, like Somalia, they had a brutal famine recently, and we have the opposite of that going on. We have food everywhere, and a lot of it's not very healthy. In fact, it's like poisonous and addictive. And what we encounter is an echo chamber where people are frustrated with their bodies and wondering why they are keeping fat, when it's the historical evidence is showing you that we were meant to go through moments of starvation or deprivation as a species. And it's important for us to embrace that. We do fasting, we do other forms of deprivation to keep equilibrium, and they even know that in farming. Like, you can't farm the same piece of land over and over again. If you do that, then you devoid it of nutrients, and you have to cycle off it. They'll let the land rest. They even do that in the Old Testament. Every so many years, they let the land rest, move over to another place. Bodies are kind of the same way. They need little moments of deprivation, of starvation, where you're not getting, all this food. And if it does, just like the rain containers, we're going to collect that fat. That fat's going to come on because your body is smart. And if, let's say, for some reason, the power grid goes out, there's a big hurricane. We've experienced this before. Power goes out, stores are gone. There's no food in the 3 days. Things go to shit really quickly, and people forget just how fragile our system is. But your body and your genetics don't forget that. That's happened for thousands of years. It's ready for those moments. But us psychologically think that we live in this robust world where nothing goes wrong in our last so many years. But that's not the truth. Things do go wrong. And when they do go wrong, you will be very thankful that your body stores fat and then it operates this way, because it's very wise. God made it to survive some brutal times. So I want people to not be frustrated with their bodies. I think a lot of people end up encountering weight loss, and it can be very depressing for them because they've lived in another world their whole life. So
Right.
When they do try to lose weight, it can seem daunting and damn near impossible because they're hungry and they feel like they're starving. And I've seen people that are overweight and obese, kids usually, but I've seen adults too, where they look at me and they're like, I'm starving, and they have pain of like a Nigerian child in their eyes, like they're dying, and it is very painful for them to confront this because they've tuned their body to operate in a hungry place where their hormones aren't sending off the signals to be like, you're satiated. They're constantly unsatiated because of the foods that they eat. They never feel like they're full. and they don't know how to operate. So it's like getting someone off of like heroin
Yeah.
or like alcohol. It's like these brutal, symptoms of like their body is revolting on a very high level. So it's not easy. It's not easy for people to lose. So a lot of people to lose weight. It's a very painful process. It can be very painful and depressing, and feel like they're going to lose. How do you? And you're losing a pound a week, maybe.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
It's a long journey.
It is. So we're going to get into body types here, guys, and genetics. And this is going to go into diet and how you start to lose weight. Because in the beginning of this, I kind of talked about it being weight loss is number one in like fitness communities, and it's the number one diet program. It's like Jenny Craig. It's like, any of these places, it's a billion dollar industry. And what they're doing is they're making money off of people by giving them a turnkey solution that isn't educating them. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We want to give you education. We want to give you knowledge so that you can understand the way your body works, so that you can make adjustments for yourself, so you develop a lifestyle instead of a copy and paste from someone else that might not be working for you. And this is why. We have body types. We have ectomorph, lean, slender, fast metabolism. These people, it's very hard for them to gain weight. Think about like your skinny guy in high school that could eat like a whole thing of pizza and still be like 2 pounds underweight the next day. Like, you weren't an ectomorph though.
No.
Maybe you were, Dave.
I was an ectomorph. Yeah.
You were, when you were younger.
I think Michael Phelps is an ectomorph.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Ectomorph. You'll know them. They can eat like garbage trucks and they just stay skinny all the time. Very hard for them to gain weight. They have their own plate. Like, it's hard for them to gain weight. They have to eat an unholy amount of food to gain muscle. Then you have your mesomorph, athletic muscular build, mid-ground metabolism, easier to gain weight and lose weight for these people. Like they're pretty much like right there in the middle ground. They can do both pretty easily. And then you have your endomorph. These people are round, soft, slow metabolism, easier to gain weight, and harder to lose fat. Now, these are the three basic categories. You can have mixtures of these two. Like you can have an ectomorph, mesomorph. Like he's more on the easier to or harder to gain weight, easier to lose weight. You can have a mesomorph, endomorph, who's like it's easier for him to gain weight than it is to lose weight. So you can have like a blend of these three. Usually it's very rare to get someone who's just flat out on one or the other of the spectrums, but it does happen. And you will see that guy that eats nothing and somehow stays fat the whole time. And he's definitely an endomorph and might have some genetic predispositions to hold fat. So the next thing we're going to get into is genetics. Now, this is super important, something that goes into starvation and history and looking at your body and the humans from a historical frame. So you're not just looking at like, who you grew up in high school and your granddad. You're looking at this thing in the large. Who are your ancestors? Where were they on the planet? Where did they live? Where did they exist? This is really cool with the 23andMe and some of these other genetic platforms where you can get an idea from like what you are. Have you ever taken that?
Yep.
I want to take that. What are you?
I'm mostly Scandinavian, like 70-80%.
Mostly Scandinavian. What about you, Dave?
I got to be pretty close to the same. I know I'm half German, but
German.
The rest is, Scandinavian.
Okay. So here's why that's important. Your ancestors gave you your genetics, right? So your ability to digest certain foods depends on your genetics and how close your ancestors were to the equator, the longitude or distance from the equator. Why? Because it will determine the foods that live and grow in that region. Seems like common sense, right, guys? But how many times have you thought of this? If you live close to the equator, more fruits and sugary foods will grow here, making people from these regions more able to process sugars and carbohydrates. The farther you get from the equator, the less sunlight, the more fats, grains, less sugars, the more sensitivity to carbohydrates and sugars you're going to have. This seems pretty straightforward, right? Animals that live in the cold, they store fat for the winter, right? Think about like walruses and, bears and elk and moose. I mean, if there's a cold season, they're storing fat. right? So it's going to mean that the people that live there, they're more used to eating fat because they have it in their diets. All right. Same with like with grains and roots, but there's not a lot of fruit trees growing there, right?
Mhm.
You might have a little bit of blueberries here and there, but it's certainly not as prolific as you would this if you go to like Colombia, right? Or Jamaica or Miami or any of these places where it's just tons of fruit trees, right? So if you live close to the equator, your genetics are going to be better able. And there's actually 4 genes that are responsible for how you metabolize carbohydrates. And they've linked them to people that live near the equator because they're used to eating fruits, they're used to eating sugars, they're used to eating these things. So get an idea and go look at your past besides your skin color, of course. That'll tell you a lot. If you're white and pale and you have little melanin in your skin and you have blue eyes,
Yeah, and blonde,
then
probably
you're
from near the North Pole.
right. So carbohydrates are probably not going to be your friend. All right.
Yeah, I did extremely well on the keto diet, and I'm sure it's somewhat correlated with that
Exactly.
high fat, low carb diet.
Exactly.
Although gaining weight on that diet is very difficult. That's why I switched it up to when I was putting on mass.
Right. And it's not to say that, like, if you're Norwegian descent, you don't eat anything but meat and you're on a carnivore diet.
Mm-hmm.
That's extreme. Like, most people have eaten, like I said, even up there, you have blueberries. You know, in Alaska, we have blueberries, we have currants, we have cranberries, we have blackberries, we have crowberries. Lots of little tiny berries, but it's certainly nothing compared to like the fructose that you're going to get out of like a mango in Miami. Just nothing close to that. So this is really boiled down, but I want you to get the logic behind why certain diets might work back better for some than others. I lived in Alaska, and when Eskimos, who historically ate very high protein, very high fat, protein-rich diets, were introduced to processed foods and high fructose corn syrup, they quite literally exploded. Sadly, this is also what happened with alcohol, which has destroyed many natives because they never drank the stuff. It's like putting a fluorescent white Norwegian in the Nevada desert. The lack of melanin in their skin from living in a northern climate with the sun exposure will burn to a crisp, while the Cherokee Indian darkens to a beautiful bronze color. Horses for courses, as the English say. What works for one may not work for another. All right. Relationship with food, Mike.
Nature versus nurture. We have all heard this saying. I am not going to pit them up against one another. Rather, I'm going to frame these variables as both and. Nature and nurture equals your relationship with food. Your genetics, upbringing, and life experiences will frame your relationship with food. For example, most people with severe weight problems have either one or more of these factors playing to their disadvantage. Genetics, slow metabolism, inclined to store fat, slow to burn it, negative nurture, bad upbringing, or external trauma that cause them to use food as a coping mechanism to get through life. I won't draw the comparison of those individuals who are fortunate in these regards, as I am sure you can think of optimal genetics and healthy upbringing. Your nature and your
Nature and nurture.
Your nature and nurture or genetics and environment will greatly color your relationship with food. We all know food is tasty. Thankfully, God made eating, sex, drinking, sleeping, pooping enjoyable. I don't know about pooping being enjoyable.
It's great, dude.
I mean, it's yeah.
You have to take a poop and it feels great when it comes out.
Yeah,
Dude.
that's true. Enjoyable. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so inclined to partake in these activities and probably not survive long. But each of these sustenance-based activities has a purpose. When this purpose is eclipsed by pleasure, we welcome dysfunction, which leads to unhappy, unhealthy lives. Many people have an unhealthy relationship with food. They rely on it for feelings and dopamine instead of as fuel, the building blocks to grow and sustain your body. If you eat to feel good, you won't be healthy. If you eat to be healthy, you will feel good. That's a very good statement. So many people, I think you can just see how much better they start feeling once they shed that weight. And they don't even know what they're missing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like the person that wakes up with a hangover every day.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so used to doing it and they don't realize, like, oh my God, I quit drinking for a week and I actually feel great. I forgot what that felt like.
Yeah. And we know now, how much being obese, lack of physical exercise, and inflammation that causes affects mental health a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, brain fog,
Mhm.
cognitive disease, lack of being able to keep a train of thought together.
Eating too much, it's not how much you eat so much as it's what you eat. Sucking down your 600 calorie pumpkin latte from Starbucks with 3 extra pumps of ass blaster is easy when comparing to spooning 600 calories of Greek yogurt down your gullet. When you eat rich, nutrient-rich, natural, unprocessed food, you notice you're eating more, not less, whatever your target calories per day is. Chewing is a thing. Masticate your food until it's small, even bits. This will grow your mandibles, making you more attractive as well.
Yeah, have you ever noticed jawline? You know, a lot of people don't like to chew. You know, my mom would give us all kinds of just high fiber stuff, and the meat that we had was super tough because we were poor and she could only afford certain cuts. And I'll tell you what, man, I was chewing
You
a
got the chewing
lot,
done.
you know. And then on Joe Rogan, you see this like it's called like mewing, you know,
Mhm.
and it's this idea of, you know, this chewing and this little rubber ball they're kind of putting in their mouth, and they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
you know,
the
chewing
jaws
down
are
on it, and
sides.
keeping your roof of your mouth, your soft palate elevated, so you're actually breathing through your nose instead of breathing through your mouth. It's really hard to breathe through your mouth while you're chewing for 30 bites. You have to breathe through your nose.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't do both, right? But
Isn't there a theory that like the reason that we have so many people that have bad teeth, like
Yeah.
we all have to get braces and stuff,
Mhm.
is because like we're not chewing harder food when we're younger. We're
We're
always just
literally
being
not
fed
using
literally
them.
just soft food for
Yeah,
several
I've heard
years,
of
and then our
that.
mouth is all messed up.
Yeah, and it makes sense because if you think about it, like the human body, and that's why I bring up starvation. It's incredibly, it's anti-fragile. And when you go to the gym, we effectively break down our bodies, and then it repairs and actually makes it stronger. If you hit the bone a number of times, it'll get denser. Those little micro fractures fill in with calcium, and it becomes a stronger bone, right? There's not a lot of things that do that in this world. This phone, if I do that with this phone, I bang it doesn't get better. It gets worse. This microphone, same. That computer, same. My car, my truck, same. Nothing really benefits from stress outside of what it's supposed to be capable of. That's built, that's technology based. It's not human or biological. Biological things usually with the right amount of stress get better. So same with the chewing. Like if your teeth aren't being like moved and they're not being like used and stressed, then they're going to turn into like, you know, these horrifying things that you see where we have to like pull them out with braces to make them. Because if you look at like the Africans, these people are like chewing on bark all day to get nutrients through. And they have like perfect sets of you know, pearly whites.
Yeah,
So
I've noticed that down in Haiti. I've been to Haiti a couple times, and a lot of them have like very great teeth, like bright white teeth.
And there's no braces going on over there. They can't afford that.
No.
Yeah, get a piece of, you know, bark and chew on that. But that's the idea is, you know, when you look at like a lot of what we think in this Western culture, in our rich culture, you know, like I don't have to walk to the store. I can jump in my car.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My buddy lives in New York, where getting in a car is a pain in the ass. And you're going to get your things way easier if you just walk a couple blocks. So it's not out of like, I actually want to go for a walk. It's like, it's easier. I get my groceries quicker if I do go for a walk than if I was to jump in a car and pay a taxi, deal with all that crap. So it's all very much necessity based, you know, and we live in a country that's rich. Necessity becomes something else. And we have to look and take an eye onto like, okay, is serving my food, you know, eating easy food to eat necessarily better, right? So I want to bring things back to the biological component of a body. You know, they were meant to be stressed.
Yep.
Physiologically and mentally. Like that's the way you learn too. You get smarter after being stressed, after feeling dumb, right? That's the way we work. So that pain process that we go through of that little bit of like that fearfulness of pain, you know, I have to do this. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to encourage people to look at weight loss that way. You know, if you are obese and it's very hard for you to lose weight. Like I'm watching a show right now. It's called This Is Us. And I don't know if you guys ever watched that show, but the sister's obese girl. Like she's really fat. and they paint a picture of like her losing weight in like a way that is very real. You know, she's going to like a group where she gets together with her friends, or these people that are fat, and it's almost like an AA meeting for them.
Oh wow.
You know, yeah, you know, and that's the way it is for a lot of people. They rely on food for good feelings, to deal with trauma, you know, to deal with bad feelings, you know, or get through life.
And I think we also just have the cultural problem of, like, I think society shame has always kind of kept things in order. And it's not just like with obesity and being fat. Like, I think there's a certain shame that most cultures around the world have with that. Like, you're not going to see many, you're not going to walk around Belarus or, Italy and see many fat people, because it's just not allowed in the culture. And there's other things like that too, like modesty. Certain cultures are very different with modesty. And America has kind of taken all of the shame shackles across the board, whether it be obesity, modesty, sexuality. Like, there's just zero shame on anything now. So everything goes. And that includes promoting actually being obese, as we see now in ads and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there's like a cultural component to this as well. I think that we got to hopefully as a society can right the ship on, because you're still making it like, yeah, we got people always complain about our food, but we have access to good food. So it's your own choices that you make. Like, Europe has the same bad food to eat. There's McDonald's in Europe, and they make different choices because it's there's a high level of shame to be obese there.
Yeah, and you know, we get educated on a lot of things, and I think more than ever lately, and that's why I'm bringing up the idea between like, you want to lose weight because you want to look good, but losing weight is also a healthy decision. You know, a lot of people, they are losing weight, and I know this in the bodybuilder community, but they're not healthy.
Right.
There's a lot of skinny people out there that are not healthy.
Skinny fat.
They could be skinny fat, or they could just be skinny, and they could be doing it the wrong way. You know, and that's why I bring up genetics. That's why I bring up some of these points that will make it a lifestyle for you. Because if you can lose weight, that's okay. And I have plenty of friends that have lost weight, and that is, people can generally lose weight. They can generally lose weight, but keeping weight off is the hard thing. A lot of people will end up yo-yoing back.
Most, yeah, high majority, like
And
90%.
that's very depressing
Mm-hmm.
for people. Within my weight loss, this what we're going to go over in these next few episodes, we're going to show you a way that you can not let that happen anymore. But it won't be a plug and play. It won't be a copy and paste. It's going to be a class. This is why we're learning about genetics. This is why we're learning about some of these broader, we're framing out weight loss from a larger view, like a historical view, where you come from, how a diet would look like for you, maybe not from your buddy that has completely different genetics than you. And maybe he lost or she lost a lot of weight, and he's like, do this. That might not work for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to study yourself. You are a biological machine that is made uniquely, that has genetics that span thousands of years from all your ancestors, and all those people went through certain things and ate certain foods, and that is going to influence how you eat certain things. And then also taking into account your nurture, how you were raised. Were you raised in a, you know, soda pop and fruit roll-up family that stayed in front of the TV and ate TV dinners? This is going to be a lot bigger process of learning for you than it is going to be for the other guy that will, you know, had an athletic family that loved to go out, you know, and do stuff out in nature, go on hikes, go out and play football on the weekends or have sports, and that ate very healthy. The mom cooked whole foods at home and kept you on a good diet. That's going to come a lot more natural to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to come a lot more natural to the person that has been traumatized, you know, and that found themselves eating, you know, rolls of Twix in the middle of the night, you know. So these are the points that you're going to have to confront, that we will confront in this series. of how to build a lifestyle. So it's not just losing weight, it's keeping weight off, and it's being healthy. It's doing it in a way that you will be able to continue doing and enjoy doing, because at the end of the day, eating is fun. Eating should be enjoyable. Breaking bread with your brothers and your family should be something you look forward to, not something that you dread. And if it is something that you dread, I guarantee you're going to end up back where you were at. So that is the plan. That is the goal. That is where we want to go with weight loss.
Sounds good. We'll catch you next time, guys.